1 billion lions versus one of every Pokemon. This is a debate that has been going on for over 10 years. And with more time that passes, this question only gets more popular, with each side coming up with unique answers on why their side would win. At first glance, when I first heard this question, I thought it would be pretty easy. The Pokemon obviously win, right? They're just animals with superpowers, so they're dunking on a billion lions. But the more research I did for this video, the answer actually is a lot more complicated. But before we can get into that, I would like to debunk some common arguments used by both sides and set some ground rules for this battle, since the question's very vague. On the Pokemon side, some of the arguments I hear the most are, how would the lions even hurt ghost-type Pokemon? If we assume lions are normal types, they will be completely ineffective against ghosts. When I first heard this, it made a lot of sense, until I realized Pokemon are not just limited to the moves assigned to their type. Let's take a move like Crunch for example, a dark-type Pokemon move which is literally a Pokemon biting their opponent. If we were to equalize the lions to the Pokemon universe, they would easily have access to this move. Considering Pokemon like Litleo, which are literally the lion equivalents for Pokemon, can learn this move with ease. If anything, lions would have a super effective way to deal with ghost-type Pokemon, since Crunch is a dark-type move, and that's super effective against ghosts. The most new and recent argument on the Pokemon side which sparked this debate is, what about Z moves? AoE moves have always been a problem for the lions, since if one Pokemon is able to dish out a move that can eliminate multiple lions at once, it's not looking good for them. With Z moves literally being the embodiment of AoE nukes, there are literally tweets that went viral this week with damn near 10 million views explaining how crazy Ultra Macrozma's Z move titled Light That Burns the Sky is, since literally look at this thing, it would kill millions of lions. And it's not just this one Z move either. Mew even has a Z move where he splices down the gene pool, puts it together, and throws it at you, blowing up the entire arena. Now obviously the lions aren't able to handle this amount of power, so the debate should be over, right? Except the lions have a trump card. The lions wouldn't even have to deal with Z moves in the first place due to the nature of the question. The original question is, who would win 1 billion lions versus one of every Pokemon? Not who would win 1 billion lions versus one of every Pokemon with Pokemon trainers. The reason why this is important is because no Pokemon can use a Z move without a Pokemon trainer. This is the same reason why Mega Evolution wouldn't be allowed in this battle either, since they need trainers to activate this keystone besides Rayquaza since he's special. The last common argument on the Pokemon side which I'm going to go over, which is probably on everyone's mind, what is stopping Pokemon like Dialga, Celebi, Arceus, Giratina all teaming up, going back in time and just killing all the lions when they were cubs? What's stopping Pokemon like Macargo to just increase its body temperature to 18,000 degrees like its Pokédex entry says and just nuke all the lions? Literally the most popular meme around this subject is an image with a bunch of lions lined up and Macargo on the left and Arceus on the right, and Arceus says, I will take them all on the left, you go for the right. Okay, just make sure not to break too many of their bones. Implying that these two Pokemon alone are more than enough to wipe out a billion lions. And lastly, what's even stopping Charizard, Pidgeotto, and all his other flying buddies from just flying in the sky so the lions could never touch them, even though they would run out of stamina, but what's stopping them? And the lions' answer to all this is absolutely nothing. In theory, nothing is stopping these time Pokemon from doing all this, but the question is, would they? From the small bit that we have seen time travel from Pokemon like Celebi, it's been relatively harmless and not to this bloodlusted degree. I'm not saying these Pokemon don't have the capabilities to do this, but we honestly have not seen them do it. And if we're taking Pokédex entries into account, the thing that is claiming Macargo is as hot as the sun's surface, it raises a lot more questions than answers, since as we all know, these Pokédex entries can sometimes say the most wildest things about Pokemon that we haven't seen to be true. So if we want to go down this route, sure, the Pokemon win millions of years ago when Celebi went back in time and made sure lions never existed, but I think that answer is relatively boring. I'd argue instead of using this unrestricted format where Pokemon can do things outside of the time of possibility, we actually use the logic of the Pokemon games. Here we have something that's a lot more consistent, with typings that actually matter, stats, and the inconsistent logic of the Pokemon anime having no effect. So if we are using the logic of the game, there are unfortunately a few lion arguments I have to debunk real quick. I'm sorry, but there will be no presence of lion ladders, lion society, lion raft, lion shield, and Mecha Lion Lalion. Yes, I know it's generally heartbreaking that I'm nerfing the lions to this degree where they can't just go into any Looney Tunes situation like they have Gear 5 and transform to defend against all powers, but I've gotta draw the line somewhere. So if I'm not allowing Celebi to kill the lions at birth, then unfortunately no lion ladders will be used here. There's actually another pretty good argument that lion defenders seem to have. If this battle is gonna be in the style of the games, wouldn't all the Pokemon just run out of PP? If you didn't know, there's a set mechanic across most Pokemon games where there's a certain amount of times you can use a bunch of moves. Once a Pokemon runs out of PP, they're completely out of moves and are forced to use the normal type move Struggle. So with some basic math and giving each Pokemon the benefit of the doubt that they have the maximum number of PP on their moves, which is 64, then multiply that number by 4 since Pokemon have 4 move slots, and then multiply it by 1025 since that's the amount of Pokemon that are available, we end up with a situation where all the Pokemon would have to defeat the lions in under 262,400 attacks. Meaning if each Pokemon were to contribute equally and all pull their weight, every single time one Pokemon uses an attack, that one attack must eliminate and kill at least 3,811 lions. Granted, not all Pokemon moves are made equally. A Pokemon using Bubble Beam against a group of lions isn't the same as another Pokemon using Earthquake or Hyper Beam to eliminate a bunch of them. But it does put into perspective that the argument that there is a lot of lions is pretty valid, because there is a lot of lions. With all that being said and done, before all these creatures magically teleport to a battle arena and duke it out, we need to figure out how strong is one lion compared to a Pokemon. And thank God, because the Pokemon games basically give us an answer. In the Pokemon universe, Pokemon are the equivalent to animals to us, so all we need to do is find a lion Pokemon, and we have 2 Pokemon that are literally based off of lions. Pyroar and Solgaleo. Now, as much as I would love to use the mythical Psychic Space Cat to upscale the lions to a point where they can maybe even fight all the Pokemon, in reality, the intended Pokemon that are like lions is Pyroar. It is literally perfect. Pyroar is literally just our lions with the red mane, and they even have gender differences with the mane, amongst them being male or female. Even their Pokédex descriptions talk about them traveling in prides, and even the gender ratios that these Pokemon are found in perfectly represent the lions in our real world. So all we gotta do with Pyroar is remove all his fun. He is losing his fire type and just becoming a basic lion. Looking at the moves Pyroar can learn that aren't some elemental balls of destruction that can destroy everything, I've cooked up a pretty good moveset for the lions. With the first move being Crunch, a move that should honestly have no debate, it's just a lion biting down on something. Noble Roar, which is a Pokemon attack. When the lion roars, it will lower its opponent's attack and special attack. And before anyone says otherwise, yes, the lions are able to lower and increase base stats. Surprisingly, the changing of stats wouldn't be something exclusive to just Pokemon because they're mythical beings. Take the ability Intimidate, for example. No matter what Pokemon you are, unless you're holding a certain item, because the Pokemon comes out looking intimidating, your base attack stats drop. So I don't find it so hard to believe if a billion lions are roaring towards you, you wouldn't feel intimidated and might not exert maximum output. The third move I would probably give the lions is Work Up, since it's literally just the Pokemon believing in themselves and increasing their stats, so I'm sure if a bunch of lions are cheering their buddies on, they're all gonna get powerful. Kinda like some big lion chant. Roar, we got this, let's kill these Pokemon, woo! The final attack I would equate Lion's basic abilities to is the move Slash. Even though Pyroar can't learn it, I don't think it's that unreasonable to believe the lions would be able to use their claws and slash something. Pyroar has a base stat total of 507, but a lot of those points are allocated towards special attacks, something that is basically useless to us because we can't use any special moves. But the base stats aren't really that important. Basically, the lions would probably have stats around the 500 range, though I don't know, we can allocate some points to their HP and attack instead. Now that we can finally compare one lion to a Pokemon, we can finally start to answer the question on who would win. All we need to do is set the playing field. When this question originally comes to mind, you probably think about a billion lions running from the left side and all the Pokemon running on the right side, clashing in the middle and having a big battle. Some of you that may be veterans in this debate may be thinking, Thunder, you're also like 3 years late to that discussion. Wolfie made a video 3 years ago on that exact scenario and how it would play out. If you haven't seen it, basically Wolfie and Dewabafet put together some numbers and determined that if all the Pokemon were to be on this playing field, they could in theory have a bunch of Pokemon use a move called Helping Hand, and then have a bunch of other Pokemon do a lot of shenanigans, and everyone just raises their hand to Goku to charge up the Spirit Bomb and bring it all to Kyogre to instantly wipe out all the lions. And yeah, I can't argue with all those numbers. If the Pokemon were smart enough to coordinate all of that, they would definitely get the win. But what if the battle wasn't formatted like an all-out brawl? What if it was a gauntlet-style battle? Hear me out. In the Aura Guardians video, he proposes the question, how many lions could each Pokemon beat on their own? And I want to take this a step further to evenly distribute the amount of lions for Pokemon. Now, you may be wondering, how many lions would each Pokemon have to face? If we do some math, dividing the amount of lions by amount of Pokemon, the amount of lions one Pokemon would have to defeat to clear their portion of the gauntlet is around a whopping 975,610 lions. So basically, each Pokemon's gotta beat a million lions on their own. With all this in mind, we can look at how well the Pokemon would fare up against the lions in this ridiculous situation. And if we were to look at only the first generation of Pokemon, you may think, okay, maybe a few like Caterpie and Pidgey don't do well, but maybe a decent majority of them actually beat the lions. Even with all the number crunching and scramming for dex entries to support the Pokemon, in my personal opinion, over 95% of the Pokemon lose to a million lions in this situation. If you have a hard time believing that, just replace the word lions with Pyroars that aren't using their flames. I don't think Pikachu could handle a million Pyroars jumping him. The only thing Pikachu could possibly do in this situation is tell him to stop attacking them, and I'll hit the subscribe button since I make new videos every week, and the lions would get pretty happy hearing this and leave Pikachu alone. So you may be thinking, hooray, victory for the lions. But don't forget, I didn't say 100% of the Pokemon get defeated. Like most things in life, only the top 5% rule the majority, and the gap in power within these 5% of Pokemon is so large that they don't even need the rest of the Pokemon to solo a billion lions more time over, even an infinite amount of lions, because the gap in power is drastically big. In the first generation alone, there are 3 Pokemon that could easily get the job done: Mew, Mewtwo, and Galarian Moltres, all legendaries to no one's surprise. Let's take Mewtwo for example. In his Mega Y form, his dex entry even says that he has the power to destroy skyscrapers with his mind. Buildings that are meant to hold at least 50,000 people, and he's doing this with his mind. The lions getting anywhere near Mewtwo, if he's actually trying, could eliminate a bunch of lions and even help out the other rooms in the gauntlets that are struggling with their lions. Some of you may be thinking, hey Thunder, you literally said earlier we can't use Mega Evolution because there's no trainers. Except Mewtwo doesn't need a trainer, surprisingly, to use Mega Evolution. Within some media like the anime, Mewtwo just seems to just go to Mega Mewtwo Y for some reason without a trainer or a Mega Stone, so I guess he can do it. But even if we aren't using this logic to support the claim, Mew is enough to defeat them on their own. Mew is like the gene pool of all Pokemons. Mew can learn any move. Mew can also transform into anything. We've actually seen many times within Pokemon journeys with Mew just transforming into local Pokemon and sneaking into crowds. I wouldn't be surprised if Mew just transforms into a lion and kills them from the inside. But Mew low-key doesn't even need to do all that since it can pick from an infinite amount of Pokemon moves to handle all the lions. Galarian Moltres' flames are so potent that it would decimate all the lions as well. If I were to do a speedrun of Pokemon that can just destroy lions, a surprising candidate was Steelix, because the lions would have no way to hurt Steelix. I generally believe it would get to the points if the lions tried to attack Steelix, they would just end up hurting themselves. Steelix literally just has to chill. Some of you guys are pretty funny though, because technically the lions could defeat Steelix by somehow jumping into his mouth and making him choke to death, but I don't know. Pokemon like Primal Groudon and Kyogre and Rayquaza are definitely chilling defeating all these lions, since they literally have the power to terraform the entire earth, which, may I remind you, can hold more than a billion lions. It's also pretty obvious that Arceus, Giratina, Dialga, Palkia, and all those guys are also not really struggling against lions. Surprisingly, Darkrai would do pretty well too due to his signature move, since Darkrai could use Dark Void and put a bunch of lions to sleep and just attack them in their dreams. Even later generations like Ultra Beast and Pokemon like Eternatus are not having any difficulty beating a million lions. So with all that being said, could 1 billion lions beat one of every Pokemon? The answer is clearly no, but the lions would put up a pretty good fight. Hopefully this answer can satisfy the Pokemon community, since this debate always seems to come up every single time we're in a drought for Pokemon news, so please Nintendo, drop a Pokemon trailer soon.